She told me she was pregnant, and I was thrilled. But weeks later, a DNA test shattered everything I thought I knew, including who the real father was. Hey folks, I'm honestly pretty nervous putting this out there, but I guess I need to get it off my chest. My name's Jake. I'm 36 and my wife Megan is 34. We've been married for a decade. If you'd asked me just a few months ago how I felt about our marriage, I would have said we were doing great. Not flawless, no couple is, but steady, committed. I had absolute faith in her. I really believed I understood who she was at her core. Turns out I couldn't have been more wrong. Megan and I first crossed paths in college. She had this magnetic energy, ambitious, smart, beautiful, with this fun-loving spirit that pulled people in. I was hooked from the start. After tying the knot, we carved out a life together, bought a home, traveled, supported each other through life's rough patches. The only point of tension was kids. I always wanted them. She, on the other hand, said she wasn't ready. Whenever I'd bring it up, she'd shut it down and I didn't press. I figured we'd get there one day. But this story doesn't begin with that. It begins the night Megan told me she was expecting. Yep, you heard that right. The same woman who had always avoided the topic of children sat me down after dinner and told me she was 3 months pregnant. I was stunned, caught between joy and disbelief. I held her hands and tried to wrap my head around it, but inside I was over the moon. I dreamed of this moment for years. It felt sudden, sure, but it was everything I'd hoped for. Still, not long after that, something started to feel off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Megan looked happy, more radiant than ever, but deep down I sensed something wasn't quite right. Before the pregnancy news, she'd been distant. Long hours at work. Weekend trips she didn't elaborate much on. Spending more time with her side of the family. I told myself it was just stress or maybe pregnancy hormones. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. I brushed it off because, honestly, I had no reason not to trust her. We'd spent over 10 years together. She was my partner. My person. But that weird feeling started to settle in like a shadow. One night, after a silly little disagreement over baby names, she looked at me and said something strange. You know, family stuff isn't always simple. I didn't think much of it at the time, but for some reason it stuck with me. A few weeks later, I got this unexpected call from her brother Ethan. Now, Ethan and I were never exactly close. He's always had this air of superiority, like he knows more than everyone else, but we tolerated each other for Megan's sake. That night, though, he called me and started talking in riddles. Something about how complicated families can be, and how I should stay aware. It left me unsettled. Later that night I asked Megan about it. She laughed it off like it was nothing. That's just Ethan being Ethan, she said with a smile. He loves drama. I didn't question it. I wanted to believe her. But things only got murkier after that. Despite trying to ignore my gut, I couldn't shake the sense that something was off. Still, I didn't want to be that suspicious guy who goes snooping through his wife's stuff. I didn't want to ruin the most exciting chapter of our lives with wild theories. Megan was pregnant. I was going to be a dad. That was the focus, right? But then came the little red flags. Megan started dropping strange comments when we talked about the future, like, no matter what happens, this baby will connect us. I remember thinking, what does that even mean? Isn't that already the plan? And then there was the sudden closeness with Ethan. She was with him more and more. When I'd come home from work, she'd be out with him, saying they were working on plans for the baby shower or dealing with family matters. But it all felt off. Still, I tried to convince myself it was fine, that I was imagining things. But it got harder and harder to quiet that nagging voice inside. Then one afternoon I bumped into a buddy of ours, Chris. He works in the same office complex as Megan. We ended up grabbing lunch, and during the conversation he casually mentioned seeing Megan around the building a lot lately. More than usual. That caught me off guard. Megan never said she was putting in extra hours. When I brought it up to her later, she got defensive, said Chris must be confused. That was the first crack. Just a tiny fracture in the trust I'd built over 10 years. But it was there. Not long after that, I got off work early and decided to surprise her. I thought we could go for a walk, reconnect a little, maybe talk about the baby. When I walked in the front door, there they were, Megan and Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table talking in hushed tones. The second they saw me, they froze. Like kids caught sneaking out after curfew. I asked what was going on. Megan quickly smiled and said they were discussing something about their parents' estate. Just regular family stuff. But the way Ethan avoided my eyes, kept fidgeting with his hands, that's when I felt it. That awful, sinking feeling. That night, while Megan was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. I know how it sounds, and I'm not proud of it, but my instincts were screaming at me. Something wasn't right and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I unlocked her phone, heart pounding, and there it was. A text from Ethan, plain as day. He doesn't suspect a thing. Don't worry, I'll stay quiet. My chest tightened. I just sat there, staring at the screen like time had stopped. What didn't I suspect? Why did Ethan feel the need to stay quiet? What secret were they keeping? When Megan stepped out of the shower, I was already waiting, her phone in hand. I asked her, point blank, what that message meant. She froze just for a second, but then, like she'd rehearsed it, she flipped the whole thing on me. You looked through my phone? Jake, seriously? How could you invade my privacy like that? Her voice got louder, sharper. Suddenly, I was the one in the hot seat. I was the one who had done something wrong. She went off about trust, about how Ethan was just being protective over some family drama I didn't need to worry about. She told me I was jumping to conclusions, that I was overthinking everything. And I bought it. I let her twist the situation until I was the one feeling guilty. I apologized for doubting her, for looking through her messages. Deep down, I still had that gnawing feeling that something was wrong, but I didn't push. I told myself to focus on the baby, on the future we were supposed to have. I convinced myself that love meant trusting even when it hurt to do so. But that text? That was only the beginning. Let me take you to the night where everything truly came undone. I'd been spiraling since I stumbled on another strange email, one where Ethan had written, "We need to stop this." Those words wouldn't leave my head. I couldn't stop obsessing over what it might mean. I didn't have hard proof, and I didn't want to accuse Megan without knowing. I tried so hard to keep it together, to act normal, but every time she mentioned Ethan, every time she smiled at her phone, I felt like I was cracking a little more inside. Then one evening she told me she was going out to dinner with friends. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't let up. I had installed a location app on her phone a few days earlier. I know that's not something I'm proud of either, but I needed clarity. When I checked it that night, she wasn't at the restaurant. She was across town, parked outside a house I'd never seen before. I had to know. I grabbed my keys and drove straight there. My heart was racing the entire way. I didn't want to believe it, but something inside me already knew. Her car was parked in front of a little house. I stayed a block away trying to stay calm, but I could barely think straight. I walked up, stuck to the shadows, and peeked through a window. And that's when I saw them. Megan wasn't with Ethan. It was my brother, Ryan. It wasn't her brother who had been the issue all along. It was mine. They were sitting so close on the couch, whispering like they shared some deep secret. I told myself maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was misreading the situation. But as I listened, I started to catch pieces of their conversation. Ryan looked torn. "We can't keep doing this," he said. "This isn't right. We have to stop." Megan's face, she looked desperate, like someone clinging to something slipping away. And then she said it, "But Ryan, I'm pregnant. What do we do now?" Pregnant. Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. My legs went weak and the air left my lungs. That was the moment everything made sense. All the secrecy, all the lies, the awkward glances and the late nights. She wasn't carrying my child. She was carrying my brother's. I must have made a noise because they both looked up, startled. I stumbled away from the window, shaking uncontrollably. My heart was pounding. My mind couldn't catch up. This wasn't real, it couldn't be real. But it was. I barely remember the drive home. Everything was blurry, like I was underwater. My thoughts were a tangled mess of pain and disbelief. The woman I loved, the person I built my life with, was having an affair with my own brother. And she was pregnant with his child. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark, trying to process it all. But no matter how many times I ran it through my mind, it always led to the same devastating truth. Megan and Ryan had been lying to me, and now they had created a future I was never meant to be a part of. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I couldn't even look at her. Everything inside me had shattered. And that's when my world truly started to fall apart. That night, I just sat there in the dark, unable to process what I'd seen. I couldn't sleep, not a wink. How could I? Megan was pregnant, and I knew now the baby wasn't mine. My own brother, Ryan, was the father. The thought hit me like a gut punch every time it crossed my mind. I kept replaying everything, wondering how I could have been so blind. How did I miss the signs? What kind of fool had I been? When the sun finally came up, I felt like I hadn't moved at all. I was running on empty, physically, emotionally, completely drained. I walked into the kitchen, and there she was, humming to herself, smiling, acting like nothing was wrong. Made me sick. I couldn't even bring myself to look her in the eye. All I saw was the betrayal. The lies. The child that should have been mine, but wasn't. I knew I had to confront her. But I didn't want to just scream at her or fall apart. I needed her to admit it, to say it out loud. So I kept my cool, played it like everything was normal, even though inside I was falling apart. Those next few days were pure agony. Every time she talked about the baby, about our future, it felt like she was twisting the knife. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get the truth out of her. So one night after dinner, I asked her to sit down. I told her we needed to talk, just us. She looked at me, a little confused but still calm. I don't know how she managed that, knowing what she was hiding. I started off carefully. Megan, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I just need you to be honest with me. Is this baby really mine? She went pale. Just for a moment, but that crack in her armor was all I needed. She tried to laugh it off, voice shaking. Jake, what are you even talking about? Don't do that, I said. Don't lie. I've seen the changes in you. I know something's going on. Just tell me the truth. She got up and turned her back to me. Her shoulders were tense. For a second, I thought maybe she'd finally say it. But instead, she started blaming me. How could you accuse me of something like this? After everything we've been through? You're being ridiculous, Jake. But I wasn't backing down this time. I know about you and Ryan, I said quietly. The silence was crushing. She didn't move, didn't respond at first. And when she did finally turn around, her face was soaked with tears. But it wasn't sadness I saw in her eyes, it was fear. What do you know? She whispered, barely audible. I know enough, I told her. I know the baby isn't mine. Her lip trembled and I saw the panic take hold. Jake. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. A mistake. I snapped. You've been sleeping with my brother, Megan? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Tears poured down her face and for a moment I almost felt something, pity maybe. But then the anger kicked back in. How long has this been going on? I demanded. She shook her head and tried to wipe her tears. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said. I swear. It's been going on for a few months. A few months, I repeated, my voice rising. I was shaking, barely holding it together. And now you're carrying his child? She nodded slowly, unable to meet my gaze. Yes. The world started spinning. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I stood up, hands clenched, trying not to explode. You lied to me, Megan. You looked me in the eyes and told me I was going to be a father. You let me believe that. You were going to let me raise my brother's child. She was sobbing now. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to lose you. You already did, I said coldly. The room went dead quiet. She sat there in tears and I just stood there, hollowed out. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw something, to break down completely. But I didn't. I just turned around and walked out. I had no idea what came next. I didn't know if forgiveness was even in the realm of possibility. All I knew was that everything had changed and nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, I woke up in a fog. I moved around the house like a ghost, numb from everything that had come out the night before. Megan had admitted it, every last horrible detail. And still I couldn't wrap my head around it. It felt like I was stuck in a loop, reliving the same pain over and over. Just when I thought the day couldn't get any worse, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone that morning. Part of me figured it was just a package or a neighbor needing something. But when I opened the door, there stood my brother, Ryan. The last person on earth I wanted to see. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept in days. I swear, for a second I thought I was going to punch him right then and there. I wanted to. I really did. But the way he looked, like he was crumbling from the inside out. I paused. Jake, he said quietly, barely getting the words out. We need to talk. I didn't say a word. Just stood there, fists clenched, my heart pounding. And without waiting for me to invite him in, he walked through the doorway like he belonged there. The nerve of him. I shut the door behind us, then turned to face him as my anger flared all over again. What do you want? I snapped. You here to tell me why you've been sneaking around with my wife? Go ahead, Ryan. Explain that. He winced but didn't look away. It's not what you think, Jake. I promise you. I let out a cold laugh. Not what I think. You got her pregnant. What exactly am I misunderstanding? He held up his hands, his voice desperate now. No, listen to me. I know how it looks, but that baby isn't mine. It can't be. I blinked. The words hit me sideways. What kind of twisted lie is that supposed to be? I'm not lying, he snapped back. His voice cracked with emotion. Jake, I can't have children. That stopped me in my tracks. What? Ryan looked down, then ran a shaky hand through his hair. A couple years ago, I found out I'm sterile. I never told anyone, not even Megan. I couldn't. It made me feel broken. Like I wasn't even a man anymore. But it's true. I've seen the doctors. I've done the test. I can't have kids. I stared at him, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Part of me thought this had to be some cruel trick, but as I watched him speak, I saw something in his eyes. Shame, pain, truth. How? How do you know for sure? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been through every test they could run. It's conclusive. 0 chance of fathering a child. He looked up, his voice cracking. Jake, I'm so sorry. What I did with Megan was unforgivable. But the baby? That child is yours. My head started to spin. My knees felt weak. Everything I had been sure of suddenly felt like it was floating away, like the ground underneath me had crumbled. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. I know I messed everything up. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way. And I'll live with that forever. But the one thing I can give you, the one bit of truth, is that this baby is yours. I stumbled back, needing distance, needing space to breathe. My mind was racing. All this time I thought I had lost everything. Thought Megan was carrying my brother's baby, and now I was being told it was mine? I didn't know what to say, what to feel. I wanted to scream, to cry, to just disappear for a while. So what now? I said, my voice trembling. You expect me to just believe that and go back to pretending everything's okay? Just forget the lies? Forget that you and she... I couldn't even finish the sentence. Ryan didn't say anything for a moment. Then he shook his head. I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not asking for that. I just thought you deserved to know the truth, no matter how messy it is. His words sank deep into my chest, and suddenly I couldn't stand being in the same room anymore. I turned and walked out the door, not looking back. I didn't know where I was headed. I just needed to breathe, to think, to be away from everything. I ended up parked on some quiet street, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I felt like I was being torn apart from the inside. The betrayal still burned, but now this new truth tangled everything even worse. The baby could be mine. After all that heartbreak, all that rage, it might actually be mine. And I didn't know how to feel about it. Relief? Pain? Oh. I sat there for hours, lost in it all. All those dreams I had, holding my child for the first time, teaching them how to ride a bike, watching them grow. Those dreams I thought were gone, might still be alive. But what would it cost me? I thought about going home. About marching in, looking Megan in the eye, and demanding a paternity test right there on the spot. But I couldn't do it. Not yet. Not after everything that had come crashing down. I needed time to breathe, time to think, time to wrap my head around the mess that had swallowed my life whole. So instead, I drove to the last place I ever thought I'd go, Ryan's apartment. When I got there, I didn't knock. I just walked in. He was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall like he wasn't even there. He didn't react when he saw me. Just looked completely wrecked. What the hell were you thinking? I asked, breaking the silence that felt like it had been hanging there for days. He didn't answer right away. Just rubbed his face with both hands and sighed like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. I wasn't thinking, he finally said. I screwed up, Jake. I know that. I've been going over it again and again in my head, but there's no fixing this. I betrayed you. I don't expect you to forgive me. My fists were clenched at my sides. I was doing everything I could not to explode. You think this can be fixed? You slept with my wife, Ryan. My wife. And now you're saying the baby might be mine, like that somehow makes this better. He didn't flinch. No. I'm not saying that to make it better. I'm saying it because it's the truth. You need to know what's real, Jake. That baby, it's yours. You expect me to believe you? I said, my voice cracking. You're asking for trust from the one person you completely betrayed. I get it, he said. I don't deserve it. But this isn't about me or Megan. It's about that child. If it's yours, and I believe it is, then you need to be sure. You need to know where you stand. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. But I also knew he was right. If that child was mine, I couldn't just walk away from it. I don't know if I can trust a word out of your mouth, I said. You don't have to trust me, Ryan said softly. Get a paternity test. I'll pay for it if that's what it takes. But deep down, Jake, I think you already know the answer. I stood there, staring at him, trying to decide if I believed him. Part of me wanted to walk out and never look back. But the other part, the part that had dreamed of being a father, needed answers. Fine, I said at last. We'll get the test. But if you're lying to me, I swear. I'm not, he said, cutting me off. No more lies. I turned and left without another word. When I got home, Megan was waiting. She was curled up on the couch, staring at the door like she'd been sitting there the whole time I was gone. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. She didn't speak when I walked in. "We're doing a paternity test," I told her. "And if that child is mine, we're going to have a very serious conversation about where we go from here." She nodded slowly, barely whispering, "Okay." But truthfully, I didn't know what here even was anymore. And then came the twist I never saw coming. A few days later we got the results. I'll never forget sitting at the kitchen table with Megan, both of us staring at the email. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. She was fidgeting with her hands, eyes locked on the screen like it held our entire future. I clicked it open, started reading. Then I stopped. I couldn't speak. My hands went cold and I felt the blood drain from my face. "Jake." Megan's voice was small, afraid. "What does it say?" I looked at her, then back at the screen. "It's not mine," I said quietly. "And it's not Ryan's either." She froze. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "What?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "That can't be right." "It's right," I said, holding up the phone. 99.9% excluded. For both of us. That baby doesn't belong to either of us, Megan. "So whose is it?" Her face went ghost white. She covered her mouth with both hands, like the truth was finally hitting her. I don't know," she whispered, shaking her head, tears spilling over. "Jake, I swear to you I don't know." My hands slammed down on the table and she jumped. "Don't lie to me again. Just tell me the truth. Who else have you been with?" She was sobbing now, clutching her stomach, her whole body shaking. I didn't think there was anyone else. I thought it was Ryan. I swear, I never meant for this to happen." "You thought?" I shouted. "You thought? What does that even mean? You seriously don't know who the father of your child is?" Megan was crying so hard she could barely speak. "No, Jake. I don't know how this happened. I thought it had to be Ryan. I don't remember anyone else. I swear." "You don't remember?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you telling me you don't even know who you've been with?" Her voice broke. "It was just Ryan. I swear that's all I remember. I don't understand. I don't understand how this is even possible." I stood there in complete disbelief. Every time I thought I'd hit rock bottom, another lie dragged me even deeper. And now I wasn't just betrayed, I was lost. Her eyes met mine, filled with this desperate kind of pleading. "Jake, I swear to you there wasn't anyone else. It was just Ryan. I never cheated with anyone else." But the DNA results didn't lie. And neither did the pit that had opened up in my chest. "So what, Megan?" I said, my voice rising, barely keeping it together. "You're telling me someone else could be the father and you just don't know who? Do you even realize what that sounds like?" She broke. Just crumbled right there in front of me, burying her face in her hands, sobbing like she couldn't breathe. And right then something inside me snapped. All the pain, the betrayal, the disbelief, it overflowed. I was staring at the woman I'd loved for 10 years, the woman I thought I was building a future with, and she didn't even know whose baby she was carrying. I turned to leave. My heart was pounding like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. "Figure out who the father is," I said, cold as ice, barely able to get the words out. "And when you do, let me know. Because until then, I don't want to see your face." I slammed the door behind me. The sound echoed through the quiet street as I walked away from the life I thought I knew. Everything, every shared memory, every ounce of trust, was shattered. All that remained was a single, impossible question. Whose child is she carrying? And somehow, I knew the truth would cut even deeper. Let me take you back to that moment, because that's when everything finally, horrifically, started to make sense. I spent the next couple days like a ghost, wandering from place to place, stuck inside my own head. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Her voice kept echoing in my head, "I don't know." I kept asking myself over and over, how could she not know? I wasn't planning on going back. I wasn't ready. But something in me cracked. I needed clarity. Not apologies, not tears, answers. When I stepped into the house again, she was there, curled up on the couch like she'd been waiting. She looked like a shell of the person I once knew. But I didn't care. I walked in, stood in front of her, and didn't even sit down. "Megan," I said, my voice like stone, "who's the father?" She looked up at me with trembling lips. For a moment, I thought she'd try to deny it again. But I wasn't going to let her escape this time. I took a step closer, holding her in place with my stare. No more stalling. No more lies. You know who it is. I want you to say it. Right now. She dropped her gaze, staring at the floor. Her silence told me everything. And in that moment, it all clicked. The business trips. The nights she came home late. The way she'd started pulling away from me right before everything went downhill. There was someone I had overlooked. Someone always hanging around the edges, smiling too wide, being just a little too involved. Her boss. Mark. That smug, polished guy who always had a hand on her back at work parties, always found excuses to keep her after hours, always called her on weekends about urgent deadlines. And I trusted her. I trusted them. I whispered his name, the realization crashing over me like a wave. Mark? Megan froze. Her entire body tensed and she winced like I'd hit her. That silence, that was all I needed. I could feel the world tilting under my feet, rage burning through my chest. Mark, I said again, louder this time. It's him. It was never just Ryan, it was him. You slept with him, didn't you? That's why you couldn't admit the truth. That's who the father is. Tears pooled in her eyes again, and her face crumpled under the weight of guilt. Jake, I never wanted this. I never wanted any of this. I swear it was a mistake, just a mistake. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You call this a mistake? You've been carrying his child, and you lied to me. You lied to my face. Over and over. She collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing again, but it didn't reach me. Not this time. I'd seen enough. You're going to pack your things, I said, the words heavy and final. And you're going to go to him. If you had no problem sneaking behind my back to be with him, then you can go be with him now. Raise his kid with him. But you're not staying here. Her head snapped up, stunned. Jake, no. Please. I don't love him. I don't want him. I made a mistake, but I love you. I love you. Don't talk to me about love, I said, shaking with rage. You threw that away the second you let him into your bed. You made your choice, Megan. Now you live with it. She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, but I was done listening. I stormed into the bedroom, yanked her suitcase from the closet, and threw it onto the bed. My hands were shaking with fury, but I didn't stop. Every shirt I packed, every drawer I emptied. It felt like I was taking back a piece of my life she'd corrupted. Megan was still sobbing, but she didn't stop me. Because she knew. She knew there was no fixing this. When I was done, I slammed the suitcase shut and dropped it at her feet. Get out, I said, my voice cold, sharp. Go to Mark. Tell him what kind of woman you really are. Tell him he can raise the child he made with my wife. She just stood there frozen. Her face pale, streaked with tears, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I was past sympathy. Past sadness. I opened the door, held it open, and waited. She gave me one last pleading look, like she still hoped I might change my mind. But I was done. Don't come back, I said, my voice steady. You made your choice. Now live with it. She stepped out, slowly, like her legs could barely carry her. I shut the door behind her, the sound echoing through the empty house. It was over. I sank onto the couch, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I had finally cut her out, torn her out of the life we'd built together, but the silence left behind was deafening. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like mourning. I'd lost my wife, my marriage, my trust in the person I thought I knew best. But I also felt something else. Relief. She was gone. And with her, all the lies and all the guilt and all the uncertainty. What came next? I didn't know. But I knew one thing, it wasn't going to include her. The days that followed were strange. Almost dreamlike. The anger that had kept me going started to burn out, and in its place I felt free. It was like waking up from a long, dark sleep. For the first time in years, I didn't have to wonder what secrets were being kept behind my back. I didn't have to second-guess the person lying beside me. I could breathe again. As the weeks passed, I spent a lot of time reflecting. About the marriage, about Ryan, about everything that had fallen apart. And surprisingly, I realized that I couldn't hate my brother anymore. I wanted to, I really did. But the deeper I thought about it, the clearer it became. We were both just pawns in Megan's game. She had lied to both of us. Played us both. Then one night, Ryan reached out. We hadn't spoken since everything came to light, and I almost didn't answer. But he was my brother. He'd made a mistake, a massive one, but he was still family. We met at a small bar, somewhere quiet. The first few minutes were painfully awkward. Neither of us knew where to start. But eventually Ryan leaned in and said, Jake? I'm sorry. I can't take it back, but I need you to know, I regret it every day. I didn't mean to hurt you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and what I saw wasn't betrayal anymore. It was pain, shame, guilt. And I realized then, as much as he had hurt me, Megan had done the same to him. We'd both been used. I'm not saying I'm over it, I said, voice steady. But I'm not going to lose my brother over her. He nodded, and for the first time in a long time we shook hands. That was the beginning of something new. Slowly we started putting things back together. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. As for Megan, she went to Mark after I kicked her out. I don't know what she expected. That he'd open his arms and welcome her into his life? That he'd leave his wife and kids for her? Whatever fantasy she'd built in her head, it crumbled fast. Turns out, Mark wasn't interested in playing house. He enjoyed the thrill, sure, but when everything came crashing down, he wasn't about to throw away his life for her. He cut ties. Cool. Just like that. And Megan? She was left with nothing. No husband. No affair. No stability. I didn't take pleasure in it, but it felt fair. She gambled everything and lost. I heard through a mutual friend she's still trying to piece things together. Bouncing from job to job, alone. That's her life now. Not mine. As for me, I started healing. Slowly but steadily. I reconnected with old friends. Picked up hobbies I'd long forgotten. I focused on myself, not on fixing someone else's mistakes, but on building something real. Something honest. And eventually I met someone new. We didn't rush into anything. We took our time. It was different. It was grounded in trust, in openness. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Now, I'm happy. Genuinely happy. I found peace not in pretending everything was okay, but in walking away from what wasn't. Megan's betrayal tore my world apart, but in the wreckage I found a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Stronger, wiser, free. And for the first time in a long, long time, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.